Hey guys, Cody Davis here with Hand in Hand Recovery Center. We are here with Mr. Todd Stumbo on another episode of The Ripple Effect. And what The Ripple Effect is here to do is to highlight individuals who are causing a ripple effect in their community. And what we mean by a ripple effect is somebody or something that is continuing to inspire change, not just within themselves, but the community that they serve. The reason today that I asked Todd to come on is, I don't know if you know this story, but we were in a training together years and years ago, and it was a multi-day training that I didn't know that you were the CEO of the organization, that you were the CEO at the time, and I remember just going, wow, this guy, he's just putting it all out there. Like, you were being so vulnerable, and if you look at him, he's got tattoos, he's very stoic. And for me, who was earlier in recovery at that point, you know, to watch another man who was willing to get vulnerable, willing to get honest, and in a group full of people that he didn't even really know all that well, other than like maybe one or two people, and there was so much inspiration behind that to then find out that you were kind of this big deal in the treatment industry who helped a lot of people. And so from that moment on, you know, continuing to watch the things that you do and be an observer, you know, I think that your actions continue to show that you do cause a ripple effect in this community. And so super honored that you're here today, man. Super honored that take a little time to hang out with us and learn about what it is that you do.
For sure, man. I'm glad to be here. I love the name of it, for sure. You know, it's... Because I would tell clients sometimes, like at the pond we used to have, it's you throw a rock in it, it creates that ripple effect. And the question is my ripple impacting people in a positive way or a negative way? For years, it was in a negative way. And for me, it's that responsibility of my everyday actions. How are they impacting my wife, my kids, my community, people around me? Because I can do something at home in the darkness of my confines and it impact a community, you know. And it's because I look at it as, so if I stayed at home and I didn't wake up at a certain time, I didn't take care of my body physically, I didn't stay disciplined, all that, would that have an impact on the rest of the world? 100%, you know, because I would fall into depression, anxiety, whatever it was, and then I would look for ways to cope with that probably were unhealthy. So I'm glad to be here, man. I look forward to it. I love the name of it.
Awesome, man.
And thank you for what y'all are doing down here. It's been a huge inspiration for me to see guys like you and Tony and other folks start things like this, you know, and help me kind of jump off the ledge recently and take that leap for sure.
I was going to say, because if I can do it, you can definitely do it, man.
Well, you know, our brains don't tell us that.
That's right.
It's it. No matter what I've accomplished in my life, it's still that part of me that claims that you don't know what you're doing. If they only knew, you know. And so that's that thing that you battle consistently, that you just got to fight to the other side of it.
Love that, man. So for those who are listening at home who don't know you, would you like to tell us, you know, who you really are and what it is that you believe your purpose in this community is right now, man?
Well, so a few months ago, I would have identified as a CEO of a treatment program, and that was kind of an identity I took on, I kept for years. And probably one of the best things that's happened in my life recently was the you know, me leaving that role, which left me with that thought of like, well, who am, you know, like, who am I at this point? Because society teaches us you have to have, or they say you have to have money, prestige, something to matter. Right, and the crazy part is when you get out of that mindset and you look around the people in your life of how much you actually matter to them despite the role, it starts to change the way you think of who you are. You know, and I always say in the big book where it talks about it, it's we're this in all our affairs, right? So, and I would preach that, but what happened to me over the years, I became the CEO of this program, and that was my identity. It was all wrapped up in that. So the beauty of it, man, is I'm on this other path, this other journey after, you know, 20 years of being sober, of kind of reinventing myself, of, you know, being able to openly and honestly say, hey, I'm not 100% sure who I am, you know what I mean, at this point, and I'm okay with that. The unknown has always been something I think I've been afraid of, but the reality of it is that's where I've found myself most times, is being willing to walk into that darkness or that shadow or whatever it may be in your life, and walk into it and say, hey, God's with me, I know that, so let's just go through this. And I know I'm going to live with a boldness and authenticity and a determination that I never had before. So that's kind of the extent of where I know I'm at right now.
And what a beautiful experience, man. And I think something so important to highlight, even with 20 years of sobriety, still figuring out who I am. Right. Or not even still figuring out who I am, but actually even going as far as saying, I'm reinventing myself. I'm creating a new relationship with my identity, because I'm starting to realize that this identity that I've held is not really the direction that I want to move in. And I think that that's probably something that doesn't get talked enough about in long-term sobriety, right? Which is, okay, I'm sober, I got the job, I got the title, I'm moving, I'm making moves, I'm even being of service to my community. Right. Now what?
Well, and then when you lose it all, or you step away from that, so to get real vulnerable, like I've never had a panic attack in my life. The only panic attack I ever had was when I ran out of crack.
That's right.
About the extent of it. So I'm 3 days after I leave the last day of my job, and I'm in a bathroom in North Georgia meeting with some guys, and dude, like all of a sudden my heart starts pounding out of my chest like I was legit having a panic attack, because it was like, what have you done? Because to think of it like this is all this energy, I think, that I held with my identity of who I was, and now that was gone, it had to come out. You know what I mean? And by the grace of God, it came out through an experience I'd never had before, which let me know I'm a human. You know what I mean? But I didn't pick up. I didn't feel the need to self-sabotage. I let it come. I brought God into it, and within minutes it passed. And ever since then, man, it's been it's one of the best experiences I've had so far, is being able to say, hey, I no longer identify with what I do, you know what I mean, or a position that I had. I'm just this guy, I'm a guy that, is constantly seeking to improve myself, get closer to God in any other way I can, and create an experience for people around me that adds deep value.
Yeah.
Now, what position or thing that ends up me doing, I don't know.
No, I love that you brought in your humanness so early on, because that's a lot of what I want to talk about today, man. Is this thing that we call the human condition, right? This piece of me that is perfectly imperfect, right? But is constantly in a state of messing it up, or my brain telling me I need to do it this way, knowing that it's not that way. And so I'm really curious to know, what do you believe is the formula for you? That works for you to combat your human condition?
So it's funny you brought that up, because I was kind of looking at that just term, human condition. So years ago, I was looking at writing a book. I'm all into leadership and got into self-leadership and whatnot. And so I came up with this acronym, but it's the word LEAD. And the first thing I have to remember is I have to love the human experience. That's the first thing, because there's so many people that, if you think about it, because we were talking before, so you wake up and you hate the experience that you're having. And it's such a strong emotion, you know what I mean? Because behind that then comes depression, hopelessness, all these different things. And so to love the human experience right off the bat means, man, there's no good or bad. It just is. It's like God is everything or God is nothing. So if I'm having an experience that I don't particularly like, where is God in that? Am I supposed to be blaming God for that? No. For me, I have to look at is I don't like this experience, but I know God is here and there's a message that I'm either missing or I'm unwilling to hear, and I'm going to stay here until I get it. And that's actually a blessing versus a curse. So for me, a lot of people don't love the human experience, and what does that even look like? It's, the loss of loved ones. That's a human experience, and so many people look at it and say, I'm supposed to love the fact that I'm going to lose people? 100%. Because if you really put it into context of, to have the experience that I love somebody so deeply that it's going to leave an internal wound on me when they're gone, that's powerful. I want that experience versus never have it, if that makes sense. Like owning a pet. If you've owned a pet, you love the pet passes. A lot of people say, I'm never getting another dog. I've never, what I mean? For me, it was like, why not? Why would you not want to have another experience like that and another and another? And it's not traumas, because a lot of people can manifest that in their mind, that this is a traumatic experience versus this is part of what life is about, and that's just one piece. So I think loving the human experience is the first thing I have to look at, is whether it's a day that I wake up and I'm fatigued, I'm tired, I gotta love the experience. It is what it is, And then the second piece is, after you learn to love it, you got to empathize with the human condition. So the human condition means that most people aren't going to love the experience. Then you're going to interface with people that experience anger, depression, anxiety, all those emotional states, because they're not choosing to love the human experience and see God in everything, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect at that. There'll be days my wife will tell you, it's like, you're not loving the human experience. Yeah. But once you can figure those two pieces out, it's like, okay, I can love the human experience, I can empathize with the human condition, so therefore I'm not going to be judgmental of you and what you're going through. Now I can articulate for understanding. So it leads us to that A piece, is now I can communicate with you, let you know I understand where you're coming from, and now maybe I get a little buy-in from you, right? So then once you get somebody to that state, or where they're willing to hear what you got to say, now you can dare them to be great. And for me, that's what I'm looking at every day, whether it's with my kids, with another human being, is like, how do I love the human experience? How do I empathize with the human condition? How can I articulate an understanding that I may have some kind of knowledge of what they're going through, and then dare them to change their life, dare them to live on a level that they dream of, they never thought possible, but it's there. That's what I love about having kids too, man, is that their minds are so malleable to that experiences. You can. I remember growing up, dude, and there was times, your parents would tell you, well, you can't do that. Why can't I do it? And they give you all the reasons why. And so I don't do that with people. It's like, well, you 100% can do that. What you'll probably face if you want to go down that road are these things. So just be prepared for that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, for me, how I deal with my human condition on a daily basis, is love and empathy are at the core of what that means for me. And if I can't show love and experience empathy, I'm going to have a hard time articulating any understanding to somebody else how to transform their life. So that's kind of how I do it in a nutshell.
I really like that, man, and that whole concept of loving the human experience, right? What does that look like for you on a day it's not so easy?
Well, so just recently, man, facing some trials with getting our new place up and going, and just jumping through hoops. It didn't pan out the way my plan outlined. And so to love that experience is like, you know what, the beauty of this is it makes me sit with my anxiety about it all, and when I sit with my anxiety about it, I got a choice. I can obsess about that, and I can push and get irritable, restless, discontent, mean, nasty with other people, or I can bring God into the circle and say, what is it you're wanting me to learn and see in this moment? Like, what is it that I can be taught? Because at the end of the day, if I'm not teachable, none of it matters anyway, you know? So it's, for me on those difficult days and to be honest with you, man, when I stay in that state, I don't really have difficult days. It's, you know, the hardest days I've had, to be fully transparent, was probably the 3 years leading up to my exit of the company I was with, because I didn't understand internally what was happening to me, you know, and I kept showing up asking questions, you know, to God. It's like, hey, I still don't see what it is you want me to see. And what came was, one of the biggest revelations I ever had is God came and more or less said to me, Todd, look, for roughly 20 years, you've trusted me with everything in your life, but the one area that you fear the most is what you've given me the least. And now I'm asking you to walk away from what you love and trust me, you know. And so to set aside the status, the name, the position, all that, and become nobody for the sake of his purpose, dude, that was so hard to do, you know. And you know, it's one of those that I just kept talking to him through the whole process. And so I think it's, what I would say to people is, to truly love the human experiences, you got to stay out of your own mind, you know, because when you stay there, dude, I can create some pretty wicked experiences. You know, what's going to happen. It's like watching John Wick at 9 p.m. at night. Not a good thing for me, you know what I mean? Because then I'm up all night thinking 5 people are going to break into my house, and I'm planning how I'm going to kill them all. You know, it's insanity. So for me, I've got to be very careful about, hey, what external positions do I put myself in that create problems for my internal condition? Sure. You know? So I think it's more complicated than I can explain, but that love of talking to God and being able to ask, like, dude, what do you want me to learn here? Like, I know I wouldn't be in this position if there wasn't something you wanted me to experience in order to empathize with somebody else in the future. So what is it?
You know, I think, especially since we've kind of talked about it a couple of times already, and I know you to be a very God-first man. It's one of the things that I absolutely respect about you. And so I think I'd love to hear about, like, how your relationship with God is instrumental in what you do.
Well, first of all, I think the relationship with God, it had to, the way I got so close to God was I realized quickly that it coincides with my relationship with myself, right? So the crazy part about it is, I think the first thing I would say is that we spend the majority of our time with the person we respect the least, and that's ourselves. So if God is everything or God is nothing, then that means God is me, you know, and I am God, and God's within. So therefore, I've got to learn to respect me. And what does that mean? Like early sobriety, it's like, you know, hey, not picking another drug up or drink or anything. And it started moving for me from that to, how do I quit smoking? How do I stop using language that's probably not the best, you know, presentation of myself? All these different pieces that I created this respect for myself, which in turn was a respect for God. You know, and I started, as I did that experience, I started feeling more connected over time. It wasn't, you know, I'm not like super biblical. I'm not, you know, any of that. I'm highly spiritual. But to be spiritual means, for me, to be deeply respectful of who you are and your inner spirit, you know. We're so fragile, man, as human beings. The internal condition of us is like, so I looked at it and said, how do I deal with that frailty, and I build it into something that is just absolutely unbreakable? You know what I mean? How do I train? Because I'm good at training the external body, but how do I do that with my spirit? And I don't think enough of that gets taught, you know, especially with kids these days, the resiliency and the ability to weather those storms. And the first piece for me was learning to respect myself on a deep level, and stand up for the man that I know I'm supposed to be, despite what you or society thinks about me. Because that's hard. Because all I want to be is accepted. I want to feel like I belong, and then I'm good at something. And to go against that because I respect myself enough to say, hey, for example, if we're eating, almost every time you eat, man, hey, do y'all mind if I pray for the meal? It's like, internally, I don't want to put myself out like that. Like, I'm literally saying, don't say this out loud. They may judge you. People may not like you. They want to stay away from you, whatever. And, dude, if I walk away from that, I respect myself less. And therefore, to me, I turn a shoulder to God, So for me, that's kind of the experience I had is the more I learned to respect myself and who I thought I was supposed to be for the world, the closer I got to God. It wasn't a burning bush. It wasn't a biblical thing. It wasn't a church thing. It was a literally love the human experience to the point I just respect it so much, that now I'm in a state where, the God I believe in that shows up to have the experience with us, So he understands what I'm going through, for sure. But I don't see him treating himself the way I'll treat myself sometimes, And if I want to be close to him, for me, that means that I can't treat myself that way.
So to disrespect self is to disrespect God, essentially, in a lot of ways. I think that's a very...
And I wouldn't even look at it as a disrespect as much as, I guess in my head, I don't know that I ever want to just blatantly disrespect anybody, right? So therefore, it might not be a disrespect. It might just be the lack of knowledge of how to respect myself in that circumstance. Because if you're blatantly disrespecting yourself, you got some deeper issues that you really got to start to work on to get out of that. But dude, it's like I say all the time, it's like some crazy stat that like there's a 1 in 400 trillion chance that you were even born, So to say that you're not meaningful and you're not special and you don't create a ripple effect in this world is insanity. So I've got to respect that. I got to respect the fact that I've been given this chance. See, I went through this weekend, a friend, childhood friend, hadn't been in touch with him years and years and years, but I'd watched it on Facebook, wakes up, has 3 kids, he's going through some stuff, but 3 kids, great luck, kills himself. And it's just like, by the grace of God, I've learned to respect myself so much that I don't get to those spaces in my mind. Despite what's going on around me, what's in my bank account, what's in my pockets, none of that matters at the end of the day. It's, hey, what kind of man am I showing up as on a daily basis despite what's going on around me? And I just, dude, my heart aches for people that don't have the experience I have. Like, I don't know how to give it to people and say, if I could put it in a pill, and we love pills, so it's like, here, take that. But it's just work. You got to put the work in, and you, me, nobody else is going to be able to just do a session and boom, here you go. You've got to put the work in and deeply believe that if I show myself more and more and more respect, and that doesn't mean using other people's doormats. It's getting to, for me, it was a space of servitude, of how do I make other people more important than myself. That humility of saying you matter more than what I want matters. And that's what started to really shift it for me.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. I'd like to shift slightly, kind of in the same vein, but just a little bit more. Okay. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about like when, and not even necessarily early recovery, but like early years of getting yourself into the behavioral health field, and like what being of service to people looked like versus what it looks like today.
Right. Back then, so I think it was crazy how I got into it. I was actually trying to be a pilot, like a commercial pilot. I had my pilot's license, all this. The FAA grounded me due to my drug and alcohol history. Basically said, hey, you got to go through this 5-year HIMSS program. You're probably never going to get free and clear license again, but you can try it, right? So it was like a door that God shut, and I was kind of agitated about it because I was like, well, hey, I've spent all this time training, that I was going to follow my brother's footsteps. Though being a pilot in the recovery industry is like a horrible idea because you're in hotels, airports, there's bars everywhere, you're by yourself. It's just not the greatest experience. But as that door started to shut, the only thing I had left to do is go back and volunteer at the treatment center I went through. And so I started doing that, doing some recreational stuff for them. Fell in love with it. One of the hardest conversations I ever had was with my dad. I had to say, hey, I know you put all this money into me being a pilot, but I'd love to walk away from that and take a job, $10 an hour overnight tech. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget, because I was terrified of my old man at the time and like what, because I had this family of doctors and all. He came from nothing, like dirt poor in eastern Kentucky, and became a physician, all that. And my whole family was then there was me. So I took this job, went to him, told him that, and he said, son, do whatever blows your hair back. And that was kind of one of the most freeing moments I've had, because here my dad is that always tried to make me be something I never wanted to be. Told me, hey, if you're going to be a trash man, just be the best one you can be. So, man, that was the way I got started, and I fell in love with watching the light bulb go off for other dudes. It's just going up because it made me feel better. We can be of service to people, but at the end of the game, it's like we're really being of service to ourselves, too. And what's crazy is the word service actually comes from a Latin word which meant slave. And I never knew that, and it's crazy because you look at our lives as addicts as we were a slave to the experience we were having. But in recovery, it's the word service would insinuate that you're trying to be a similar thing, though you're happy, joyous, and free.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's all perspective shift. Either way it goes, that you could be in that slave situation, but I would much rather be that to the life I have now, and of trying to be of service and help to other people than what I was in active addiction. So a lot of it was early on me chasing, how do I just show up for other people as best I can, and there was ego involved. I mean, people start telling you how good you are working with other people and blah blah blah, and you're like, oh, this feels good. I'm gonna keep cranking it out, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the early experience, and I think it transitioned to now more of, it's not about service so much as it is about adding value, if that makes sense, in an older age.
So you're talking about, service and today that it's more adding value. So, what I took from that is like, service hasn't changed. It's just the scope has gotten wider.
And kind of the way I look at it, so early recovery, when I had a sponsor or anybody in the rooms telling me, hey, just be of service, come and, do this, do that, be of service to other people. That was one thing. It was more of an action, right? And that was kind of a mindset, if that makes sense. So the maturity of it over the years has had to move from a mindset to a heart set to a soul set. So to add value to another human being's life, I guess I look at it as I have gifts, you know what I mean? That's the first thing. It's like when you start to respect yourself and kind of tie it all in is, God gave us all these different gifts, right? And we're able to tap into those, hone those skills, all that. So if I have those and I'm respecting myself and I'm starting to love myself, get closer to God, it's like now He's asking you to move from a mindset to a heart set to a soul set. And that soul set is, how do I take what I've been given in this world and start to give it to other people in such a way that it just adds dramatic value to their life? Whether that, because some people do it financially, they've been blessed financially, so how do they go out and give that gift to other people? Some do it through talk, some do it through their presence, all those different pieces. And I think the maturation process of it is learn that it goes beyond an action, and it goes into who am I at my core, and how can I give that to the world? Because how many addicts and alcoholics do you know that will show up and be of service, but they internally still view themselves as a horrible human being? They dislike themselves. You know what I mean? It's just, I think it has to mature over time for us to truly give the world what it deserves, And it was that 1 in 400 trillion chance that we came to life, and we came to life for a reason. And I truly believe it's simply to add value to other people. I mean, it's that super complex to pull off and understand, but I genuinely believe that it's that. Now, here's where it gets super crazy for me, is I can go down these rabbit holes all day. It's like, well, who was I here to add value to? Like, some people come for a very short period of time, and we ask, why did that child die so early? Well, maybe their entire purpose was to add value to one specific human being. They did that in their role, and it was over. So for me, every single day I wake up, what I tell myself is, you are still here supposedly living out your purpose, so you got to get up and go do it. I got 30 plus friends that have died, been murdered, something from this disease, and they don't get that chance. So if I continue to wake up, then that means my purpose, my gift is not fully fulfilled yet. And I've got to, the only way I can respect myself and God is continue to seek out, where do I get more of what I got now, and how do I learn more about my gift, if that makes sense. So it's a move from that mindset of service to a soul set of true adding value to other people,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know for me, man, there's the line in the big book that talks about your job is to now be of service to any man anywhere, right? And if you look at that definition of what job actually means, right, it's just responsibility or duty. And it doesn't even actually say anything about another alcoholic or an addict. It just says any man anywhere. And so, truly being able to encompass that, right, and be like, no, I am making a full life out of it, yes, I can say that, like, oh, I have a career in this and everything like that, but ultimately I have a career in it because I live in a society that says, hey, you have rent, you have a mortgage, you have these bills, and it requires this thing called money to make it all happen, right? But it's like, hey, if we took away money for a second, whatever. But if we took away money, it's still like, hey, my job, my duty and responsibility, because of the life that I get to live today, is to still go serve any person, any man. And whether that's a substance abuse issue, a mental health issue, or, hey, you need help, carrying your groceries to your car kind of thing. And I think that's, kind of what you're saying goes back to that soul set. It isn't just like it starts in the mindset of, okay, I gotta not be selfish anymore, right? I gotta start thinking of other people other than myself. And maybe that's where it starts, right? But where it ultimately, ideally leads to is, hey, how do I just continue to wake up and turn out of self? How do I wake up and turn and go, how am I impacting the people around me, whether that's my wife, my client, the stranger that I encounter at the store, right?
Well, it's a longing, so you move from the early sobriety mindset of, God dang it, I have to do this to stay sober and blah, 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 to this, like, you feel good about it. And that's more your heart set, is like, it's a selfish thing in a way because you're getting something from it. But for me, the experience, when I say soul set, it is a longing. Like, I feel an internal, like, I don't know how to express it other than like this cry that you have to go help this person, or you need to do this for this person. And you can clinically call it what you want. You can call it codependency. But for me, what I've found is, dude, that was new to me because I haven't felt I don't know how to express it, but like, I went from being a pretty hard, very stoic, like I don't have emotions, to, man, I can sit and watch something on TV and be in tears because of the pain it creates internally, and how can I be a part of that change? How can I add value to simply my daughter's experience when she comes down the stairs to eat dinner? Like, it's that, what can I do in this moment to add value here?
Sure.
So it moves from, this selfish mindset that I used to have of how can I go be of service to other people so I gain something from this experience, to my soul longs to add value to people's life. And I've never had that experience, and that was something I've started to tap into more and more and more of. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's imagine walking around with an aching heart all the time, and to me, that's what living from Soul Set really is because you're drawn to that, to do that no matter what. You have to go and help. You have to go and do, whatever it is you feel pulled to do. And there's so many people that live in this unawareness that that's even a thing, There's vibrations of energy all around us of people that are in pain and suffering and all that, and we go through our daily life and completely miss it, And it's like, God, just wake me up to the experience, Let me feel those vibrations so then I can learn about me, respect myself more, show the boldness, the authenticity, and determination to go out and be of value to other people. And so I think it's moving, from that early, maturity of being of service to adding deep value to the people's lives around you, whether they're in sobriety or not.
Sure. I couldn't agree more, man. And, I think that the thing that I will struggle with at times is the, talking exactly what you're talking about with the Soul Set, man. And it is this longing to just continue to watch. For me, it's just to continue to watch others grow, and whatever that looks like for them, right? And I think that the thing that, I'll get messed up around at times is like, you pour and you pour and you pour, and then, you kind of watch people just, do what people do at times. And so I'd love to hear for somebody who definitely, I know, has experience with that. Like, how do you work through that? How do you kind of cope with the, hey man, yeah, my soul set is just to continue to watch others thrive and pour into them and everything else, and then know that I'm going to do that, and there's going to be probably statistically more people who don't actually accept it than the ones who do. So I'm just curious to know, like, hey, how do you work through that, through the moments when you're just like, damn, they're now gone, or whatever the case may be?
Well, I think it comes back to the whole thing. It's like, that would mean that I'm focused on an outcome versus the experience, the process. So if I'm looking for an outcome, then when I get the outcome, I'm then chasing another outcome, which is no different than getting high. Right, so I'm constantly seeking the outcome that I want to say that that's what I was out for, versus my job is really not, whether you change or not, that's not my job. My job was that in this moment, I felt my soul get pulled to reach out to you, to help you out. So for a simple example, dude, I carry cash in my truck. Don't break in my truck, try to get it. I carry cash in my truck simply when I see homeless people and I feel pulled, I stop, have a conversation with them, give them money. And so many people say, dude, why do you do that? You know what they're going to spend it on. That's not my job. My job is to give of the thing that I try to protect the most is my financial stability. You know what I mean? It terrifies me to not be financially stable, and so God has asked me to put myself in a position where I give freely of it. And it's not your job to worry about where it's coming from next. Your job is just to show up and give your gifts of what I've given you to the world, and I'll work the rest out. So if I stay outcome focused, I'm chasing the dragon. I'm looking for the next hit, looking for the next high. I'm then getting resentful at you because you aren't fulfilling the outcome that I had expected.
That's right.
So for me, man, it's like I don't know how I got there, but I don't have that expectation. I look in the process of like, hey, the experience of what I just had with that person was powerful for me. You know what I mean? Because usually when I walk away, what I'm experiencing is deep gratitude for what I've got in my own life. Because I look at this person that I've just reached out to, and whatever they're going through, whether it's a financial situation, a pain, a crisis, it's like, dude, thank God that's not me. Thank God I could be on the other side and be able to go in, love the human experience, empathize with that condition, be able to articulate an understanding about it, and then dare them to come out of that circumstance, you know? And so to me, I would tell people, it's like, you get burnt out on outcomes. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And that's the danger of some of this work is when you're living in the outcome and not in the process, you'll burn out quick. But if it's you live in the process, man, that's what one day at a time is all about. It's about the process, not an outcome. So if I work with a sponsee and I'm telling them to live one day at a time, what does that mean? It's just to be in the process, you know? You always hear it, love the process. You don't have to love it, just experience it and be okay with it. We don't do that. We live in the anxiety of the future or the regret of the past, and we totally miss what God has for us in the present moment. So it's like you're a gifted healer. I don't think that God sent you here to worry about the outcomes. That's his job. I mean, what if, let's just play this tape out. What if Cody's entire process is supposed to go through this for the next 10 years and to only impact one guy who then goes out and impacts 2 million?
That's right.
If I stay outcome focused, that you might miss that exact opportunity.
I feel so inclined right now. This is one of those moments that I feel like I hear my former sponsor in my head going, there's 3 things in this world. It's your business, my business, and God's business. You're worried about my business, you're not worried about your business. If you're worried about God's business, you're meddling in powers that you have no business in. So worry about what you can worry about, right? And I don't know, just like hearing all of that, I'm like, yeah, no, man, it really is all on God's timeline, you know, so it's pretty cool. Thank you for that reminder. What are, you know, you're a very accomplished individual. What are the areas that you believe that you still need to grow in?
Well, see, I don't see myself that way. I don't see myself as accomplished.
For us out here, the rest of us out here view you as an accomplished individual. 20 years sober, helped a lot of folks, stable life.
I've always looked at it as like, you know, this, for years, it was this need to be good enough. You know what I mean? Because we all come with our stuff, and one of mine was growing up, never felt good enough. Never felt that I did anything good enough for my dad or coaches or whatever. So it fueled this guy that said, I'm going to work harder than everybody. I'm going to leave after you get there, but I'll get there before you show up. I'm going to do, you know, all this stuff. And dude, I had to start to really chop away at that. Because what it did is it cost me. You know what I mean? It cost me relationships, all kinds of different things. I don't see myself as accomplished as much as I see myself, I have been willing to have the experiences and try to show up as best as I can, you know, and respect myself as best I can so I can experience what God's got right in front of me. You know, most of what I think I've quote unquote achieved has not been me. It's been because of people around me that helped me and held me up. You know, I can't take a whole lot of credit other than being willing to show up, you know. So it's, you know, that's one thing. I think accomplishments they got holes in them. When I look back, it's like the value, how much value did I add to people's life through my experience of doing these things? But what I got to work on, man, is all the same stuff I had to work on when I got sober, other than the getting high and drunk. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the more clear that I get, the more I understand this has nothing to do with the outside. It's all got to do with my lens and perception of how I view the world and my circumstances. the biggest piece is constantly looking at that in my own life. Is like, how am I looking at my current experience? What lens do I got on? You know, do I got on the lens of the respect I have for Todd and for God, or do I have a lens on of I'm in control, I'm a former CEO and I can blah, 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 blah. Do I have the lens on that I want to impress you? Do I have the, you know what I mean? It's all perspective. So to me, it's this constant work on what perception am I having on a daily basis when I show up, even when it comes to fatigue and working out. You ever hear that voice tell you that, man, Cody, you're so tired today, you just don't go work out, you know?
This morning.
Yeah. So it's all a perception, you know what I mean? Because I can then have a conversation with that guy and say, what makes you so tired that you can't go do 20 minutes of some kind of activity to take care of yourself? You know, and then you start having that internal argument, and you realize quickly, like, holy crap, this is truly an inside job, because there's nothing external driving this.
Yeah.
This is solely the conversation I have with myself that creates the experience that I currently got. And so many people blame everything around them, and they never take responsibility for what's going on here. You know, it's like Eric Thomas says all the time. It's like, you should put yourself on punishment, you know, because you're the one that listens to you, and you have the experience that you sit and talk about in your own head.
So true, though, man. So true. How do you, for you at least, you know, how do you take that? Because I agree, but where I can get it mixed up is going into more of than a shame-based narrative, right? Because for me, yes, I know that there is a line between taking accountability, ownership, and accepting, you know, like, I am to blame in this, versus how do I then not turn it into then shaming myself as a result? So what does that look like for you?
Why? And I love the question. So here's the crazy part. Like, I get into manifestation of stuff all the time. So we constantly walk around and we manifest and we meditate negative thinking, right? So people think that to meditate means I have to go in a room, be quiet, settle my body. Dude, you're walking around meditating constantly. So what I do with people when it comes to manifestation, the world says, hey, you watch all these videos that talk about manifest the house you want, the car you want. What they're not telling you is you can't have any of that until you manifest the man that you got to become. Yeah. So what I do is I narrow it down to 10 qualities that I want to be as a man, right? And then I have to meditate. I pick 3. I write definitions for those 3. I don't Google it. I don't web search it. What's my definition of courage, right? So I write it down. Then I start to meditate and visualize myself being that guy in all my affairs. So if I go out, I make a mistake, instead of shaming myself, I can go back and say, hey, but when I made that mistake, was I a man of integrity? Did I show up with courage, and did I have faith? Okay, then that's okay. I did my best, right? Because shame means, in a sense, that you didn't do the best that you think that you know you can do, right? So go even further than that. It's not about doing, it's about being. So it's like when I shame myself, I'm saying in some sense that I wasn't the man that I know I needed to be. So what does that even look like? Most of us don't know, right? So it's going all the way back to those 10 things. And I say do it on a 3-month interval where you're meditating on 3 and 4. And you just consistently, what you do, because you can't keep all 10 in the air at any given time. It's like hitting helium balloons trying to keep 10 up. You can't do it. So can I pick out 3? And if Cody picked out 3 and Cody said, well, I'm going to be a man of courage, integrity, and faith for the next 3 months in all my affairs, you'd be a pretty good dude. You know what I mean? And imagine that you start doing that annually, and you're just rotating these things over and over and over. You start to meditate on those thoughts because you wire it into your brain. You know, for years we programmed our brain to think a certain way. We're a computer program. That's all we are. We got a virus, and the way you think, if it's in negative context of yourself, all that means you got a virus. All you got to do is reprogram the computer. To reprogram the computer means you got to think about the same thing over and over and over and over and over and again, all day. You know what I mean? Whether you got to say mantras, you got to visualize it, you got to listen to theta waves while you whatever you got to do. But to me, it literally is a reprogramming. It's as simple as it comes, super complex to do because that other voice is so loud, you know. But I have to have all-out conversations with myself. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, you know, you're not that dude. You're not going to be that guy. You've said you're going to be this guy in all your affairs. So it's like when I showed up at work, I visualized for years showing up at the old facility, walking up the hill, and when I walked through the doors, a light would explode out of me. So no matter what mood I got in, when I got to that door, dude, it switched. I didn't have to do anything. It was programmed. So when my brain opened that door, what it knew to do is become a light for other people. Now, was I perfect to that? No. But on a majority of days, I showed up as that guy because I reprogrammed my thinking. And so there's no quick fix to that, though. It's a consistent, let me just continue to drive. Let me show up, do this over and over and over, because this is the other way I did it over and over and over. This is the way my parents did it to me over and over and over. So I've got to change the program. I got to rewrite it. I got to rewrite the script.
Requires a lot of discipline.
100%. But it's one of those things. If you want a new life and a new experience, it 100% requires you to discipline yourself. You know what I mean? Because you can't, that's ego that gets in your way. If you think you can just show up and have whatever it is you think you need to stay sober, get sober, whatever, you can't. You got to discipline yourself in not just action, but heart set, mindset, soul set. You got to discipline yourself. I know it. If somebody else got a different way, tell me. But that's been my experience is that you have to do it over and over and over, because that's how I got high. I did the same stuff over and over and over. When I got high, I did it the same routine over and over, you know. So to be sober and stay sober and to transform the man that I need to be, I have to do the same thing over and over and over. And for me, it's backed all the way into a discipline of meditation and manifestation. Like, you could ask my wife, it's rare that the night goes by that I'm not throwing on the headphones, telling her I love her, and I go into my state, you know. Because if I'm not constantly programming myself to be the man that I know I need to be to respect myself and get closer to God, then somebody else is. So do you want to be in control or do you not? You know, and that's the only thing I can control.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, man. Dude, I thank you so much for coming out and doing this with us. If there was one sentence or statement that you would leave for the next up-and-coming provider, person who is trying to dedicate their life to the work that we do, what would you tell them?
God, I got a lot of stuff I tell them.
Don't do it!
Stay here for another hour, but I would probably tell them from like what I've recently learned is stop begging for a seat at the table and go build your own table. I mean, it's that simple. So many people, because I did it, you know, you beg for a seat at the table with these organizations and corporations, and you just go build your own table. You got everything that you need to go do it. Just go do it. Whatever it is that you want to do, quit begging people to sign up along the path with you, and just go do it. Because at the end of your life, I would rather have tried it and have no regret and said, look, I tried it, didn't work out, so be it, than sit, because we've talked about the back pocket dream. It's like to sit and have this thing in your back pocket that you die with, that will suck, you know? So it's like specific to other providers, caretakers, whatever. Dude, quit begging for a seat at the table and just go make your own table.
Beautiful. Well, once again, Todd, I really, really appreciate you coming out and spending some time with us, man, and sharing your experience of not just who you are and all that sort of stuff, but really sharing your philosophies on how to heal as a man and as a provider and stuff. I think that these are the conversations that need to happen more, you know,
Right.
amongst our community and amongst, you know, other providers and stuff, man, because, you know, we are only as good as the people that we keep around us, right? And the truth is, man, so excited for your next endeavor for you, man. I think that it's going to be a wonderful contribution to the community. Super excited for what you guys have to offer. And yeah, really excited for what comes next for everyone, man.
Well, man, I'm grateful for y'all having me.